by seeing the recording. So welcome. If you are like me, switching from one meeting to the next, you might want a reminder of what meeting this is. So I will do that, and we'll have a chance for just a quick cycle of introductions too, but we're gonna try to get right to the meat pretty quickly. I'm Gail Chodron. I think I know everyone, but I see some slightly new faces to me. So this is the Act Early State Team Meeting. Welcome. I'm glad to see all of you. We used to have these meetings about 3 times a year, and it was a longer half-day meeting. And so sometimes if you weren't able to make one, it can be a while before you see each other. So you might see faces that are new to you today. The Act Early State Team is really focused on improving the systems of care, all the way from early identification through diagnosis and assessment and intervention for kids with developmental disabilities and their families. And it's bookended. Those goals are bookended by family engagement in that entire process, and meeting families where they're at, and then statewide coordination. So we have an aim that we all work well together to coordinate what we're doing. So hopefully that anchors you back in who we are at this particular meeting. If you are used to being at these Act Early State Team meetings and are more familiar with the half day, we've moved to a shorter meeting because of COVID. And today is the first meeting in a new pattern of how we're going to do this. We're actually going to meet more often than normal. So about every 2 months, and we'll have a 90-minute meeting. So we have a pattern of the content today that we're going to test out for the next year. So pay attention and see what you think. We'll be following up later to ask you how well it worked, or if you would suggest any tweaks. So with this pattern of shorter meetings about every 2 months or so, what we decided to do with advice from the advisory group, which is some of the members here, and some feedback that we got from a broader set of team members, is to have each one meeting focus on one of the goals in the Act Early State Plan. So we are starting that today, starting with family engagement. So our entire meeting today is going to focus on that topic. And we've been very also engaged throughout all of our goals in doing more work around underrepresented, medically underserved families. So that'll also be a theme that carries through. So I will, the meeting objectives specifically for today are to highlight both what Act Early State team members ourselves are doing in relation to that family engagement goal. So we're going to use a format called lightning rounds and have 3 members of the team share some of what they're doing. So we're really looking forward to hearing that. And then a second objective is to identify family engagement strategies that we can use to reach families in ways that are culturally and linguistically appropriate. And so we've brought in speakers to share what they're doing in their project and think about what we can take away from that. And we will have discussion and interaction built into that time period. So let's do, before we switch to maybe the PowerPoint, and Nicole, maybe let's leave it on faces for a second. Most of us have our videos on, or you can if you have your video, but you didn't have it on yet. Let's real quick just go around the room. We mostly know each other, so you don't need much, but just say hi, and I'll just call on people. So in the order I see you on my screen, so you know when to go. And just to let us know your name and your affiliation that you want to, that feels relevant to this meeting. So I'm Gail Chodron. I'm at the Weissman Center, and I'm also a parent, and I do a lot of public health work. Bridget?
Hi, I'm Bridget Frank. I'm with Family Voices of Wisconsin, and I'm also a parent.
Sarah Esmond? Oh, you're on mute.
April, I want it noted I got to 2:37 today. Sarah Esmond with the Collaborative Center for Health Equity. I am not a parent, but I am an aunt to 57 youth around the nation and the world. Nice to see everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah's one of our outside speakers today. Caitlin?
Hi, my name is Caitlin McNamara. I am the project coordinator for the Living Well grant at the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. And Lynn Robick is a evaluator on that project. So I came at her request.
Great to have you. Lydia?
Hi, I'm Lydia Esmacher. I'm a program and policy analyst in the Bureau of Children's Services at DHS. I'm actually sitting on this meeting today for Nicole Miller, who will soon be returning.
Great. Thanks, Lydia. April?
Hi, my name is April Kigea, and I'm a community engagement specialist for the All of Us research program, and I am a parent to 4 children.
Wonderful. Thanks. Great to see you here, April. Thanks for joining us. Chris?
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Barnico, and I'm the Act Early Ambassador to Wisconsin. And I also work at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee.
Great. And Tim?
Good afternoon, Tim Arkle. I work out of the Wasteman Center on a number of different projects.
Great. Diane?
I'm Diane Gerlach. I'm a pediatrician with Aurora Healthcare, and I have 2 teenagers.
Wonderful. Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsay McCurry. I'm a scientist at UW-Madison and also Director of Psychological Services at KGH.
And Barbara?
Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara Katz. I'm a parent and I'm co-director of Family Voices of Wisconsin.
Anne?
Hi, I'm Ann Harris. I'm at the Wasteman Center with Gail and with the Wiki project that helps sponsor the Act Early team, as well as Wisconsin Lend Director, which is a training program.
Becky?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Becky Burns. I'm the statewide coordinator for the Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs program. I come to this work honestly as a sibling, and I'm also serve as the family delegate for AMCHIP.
Fabulous. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Amaral. I'm a pediatric neuropsychologist at Medical College of Wisconsin and Children's Wisconsin.
Wonderful. Leah? You're on mute.
Unmute. Hi, everyone. Leah Lovelum here. I'm a public health nurse consultant with the Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs program and the Maternal Child Health program. And I am a parent. I have 2 grown daughters, but both my girls, we grew up with learning disabilities. So lots changed since then.
Thank you. Brian?
Hey, everybody. I'm Brian Stoltz. I'm the Operations and Events Manager at Wisconsin Head Start Association. Easy for me to remember. I'm also Vice Chair of the Board at Rock Walworth Comprehensive Family Services, as well as being a parent.
Fabulous. Hector, you show up next for me.
Hi, my name is Hector Portillo from Padres y Hijos en Acción. Also, I'm a parent.
Welcome. Ava?
Hi, I'm Eva Shaw. I'm on the special education team at the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction.
Great to have you. Barb?
Hi, everybody. Barb Tangestal with First 5 Fox Valley. We're up here in Appleton area, and we're also the Help Me Grow state affiliate from Wisconsin State Affiliate.
Fabulous. Hugh?
I'm Hugh Davis. I'm Executive Director at Wisconsin Family Ties, and I'm a parent of 4 kids, including a young man on the autism spectrum.
Great to have you. Maria?
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Maria Stanley. I'm the a developmental behavioral pediatrician, and I'm also the medical director at the Wasteman Center.
Great. Jenny?
Hi, everybody. Jenny Bibler, also at the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, and I'm the early childhood consultant on the special education team.
Fabulous. Naomi.
Hi, Naomi Kowald, Medical Home Project Manager with Children's Health Alliance of Wisconsin.
Great. And Jess.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jess Nichols. I work as a statewide coordinator for early childhood equitable multi-level systems of support through the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. And I'm sorry I can't turn my camera on. I am in rural northern Wisconsin with not enough broadband today.
Yeah.
It's good to see all your faces.
We know how that goes. Lynn, also joining us from rural Wisconsin.
Lynn Robick, UW Wasteman Center evaluator.
And I think Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Bryce, and I'm project coordinator for the Wisconsin Care Integration Initiative.
Did I miss anybody? Okay, so thank you everyone for putting names to faces. It's good to know, to see the team before we dive into content. I really appreciate that. So welcome to the team. So I will turn it over to Tim, who's going to introduce the next section.
Thanks, Gail. So the next section is our lightning round. We're going to look at examples of family engagement within the state team using 3 of our members to highlight what they are doing. The members are all team members that have engaged families. And so we want you to hopefully pick up how you might be able to join in their work or apply what they are doing to your own work. And so they're going to answer the following questions. They're going to talk about what's the most important things we need to know, what ways people could join and contribute to the effort, and then who do members talk to for more information. And so they're going to each spend about 5 minutes each. And please do remember, in the lightning round, all points are double. So all points are double in the lightning round. So to start us off, we will begin with Caitlin McNamara from the Wisconsin Board of People with Developmental Disabilities, talking to us about the Living Well program.
Hi, my name is Caitlin McNamara. I am the project coordinator for Living Well. Living Well is a federal 5-year grant from the Administration on Community Living. It's housed in Wisconsin, one of 8 states. In Wisconsin, it's housed at the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. We are doing a lot of work. We have 8 sites across the state of Wisconsin, but our family engagement and outreach efforts extend much further than just those sites. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of those things that we are doing. I think there's some slides maybe. Yeah, you can go to the next one. So obviously a lot of our work in the last year has been focused on COVID, as it probably has been for a lot of people. This is just one example of some of the stuff that we're doing. We have been working very closely with the Department of Health Services to create accessible and plain language resources for people in long-term care and their families and their family caregivers and supporters. The one that we've been working on the last few weeks and months have been vaccine resources. These are specifically for, there's 3 different sheets for family care, for IRIS, and for those in children's waiver programs. And they really are the who, what, where, when, why, how of getting vaccines, really easy language, clear resource links, phone numbers to call, and then the backside of the sheet has some frequently asked questions that are dealing with some vaccine hesitancy issues. The sheet has been translated into Spanish, Hmong, and Somali for all 3 of them. And as we get more information, we update them, we send them for retranslation. So we keep that train rolling as we get new information for vaccines. We also have some on PPE and some other COVID related information, and then those get linked through on a member page within DHS, as well as our own website, which the link I've included is for our website. Similarly, if you go to the next slide, we are working on a I Got the Shot social media campaign. This is about connecting real life stories and testimonials about why getting the vaccine has been important for this community. It features self-advocates, their family members, their caregivers, some staff even at BPDD have shared their stories. And it really is to just put some faces and some real life stories to the reason for getting vaccinated. And we always connect those back to resources on how to find a vaccine in your area, or community-specific resources, depending on whose story we're sharing that day. So if you have a story or you know some people who got some vaccine stories that they want to share with us, we churn these out as fast as we get them. So we really will take any story and picture. It doesn't have to be of you getting the vaccine. It can just be your favorite selfie. So that is our COVID specific work, but there's a couple of other family engagement things that I wanted to talk about. So the next slide talks about our Living Well Wednesdays, I think. That's what's next. Yeah, so this was born out of COVID, but it is no longer just a COVID specific program that we're running. Every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Zoom, and then we stream to Facebook Live. We have a conversation with experts and self-advocates and family members on topics that just totally range from rights, employment, voting, safety, all kinds of things. For example, yesterday's Living Well Wednesday was on changes to the Medicaid purchase plan and getting connected with benefit specialists. Next week's on mental health. So we cover all of them, and that YouTube playlist has all of our back catalog of Living Well Wednesdays. They're really great resources. And then finally, I just wanted to mention our self-determination channel. This is by self-advocates for self-advocates, though for families as well. There's tons of really good resources and short testimonial stories on there. It's about a year-old project that extends further than just Living Well, but it's got about 1,000 subscribers. It's growing all the time. And there's new videos every week. They're incredibly well produced. They are very, very engaging. And the link on this slide is, and I can share these links as well, is to the welcome channel video. And it is just a really great introduction to all the great work that the team at the Self-Determination channel is doing. And then my contact information is on the last slide, as well as that from my colleague, Sally. We are more than happy to share the resources that we have. A lot of our work has been informed by other national or state partners and their resources. We're always looking for new stuff as well. So please feel free to reach out to either one of us.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. And Nicole, I'm assuming that the slides or the contact information will be shared after the meeting, or should they also put it into the chat box?
I can share after the meeting.
Okay. That'd be
Are
really
you guys
cool.
seeing the presenter view or the full screen view?
Full screen view.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry, I have two screens and it's messing me up.
Totally understand. It's one of those things that a year ago I wouldn't have had a clue what you meant, but now I am with you and I understand. You're speaking English. So now let's move on to Hugh Davis with Wisconsin Family Ties. I'm excited to hear from Hugh as a fellow dad. Fathers have to stick together here. And so Hugh's going to talk to us about, is it Wisconsin Plan or WIPLAN?
Yes, I am. And is my screen showing? And it's just blank right now is what mine says.
I see the
Look to the next one.
PowerPoint. Yeah,
we
go to the next slide. And it's in the.
There you go.
Hang on here. There we go. Now it's going to work for me, I think. There we go. All right. So I work for Wisconsin Family Ties, which is a statewide parent-run organization. We've been around for more than 30 years. We do a variety of things. We work on public policy. We provide training. We run the annual Children Come First conference. If you haven't been, you should really think about attending. It's November 15th and 16th this year. But the core work that we do is with families throughout the state through our network of what we call parent peer specialists. All of our parent peer specialists are parents themselves of kids with social, emotional, behavioral, or mental health challenges. And we work alongside families, with families to essentially help them get their needs met and to learn how to better navigate and work with service systems that are providing services to their kids. We've been working on our model of providing that support for the entire, we've constantly updated it and tried to refine it. We actually helped develop this whole concept of peer support more than 3 decades ago in the children's mental health world anyway. But more than a decade ago, we researched, there was an awful lot of talk around family engagement. And so, and lots of people were mentioning different models that they were using, schools in particular. And so we decided to research the family engagement models that were out there to see if there was one that we felt comfortable adopting. And each model that we looked at, we discovered something that we as family members felt was antithetical to family engagement, that just didn't fit well with the family engagement. So what we ended up doing, long story short, is we developed our own. And our family engagement model is research-based. It's consistent with trauma-sensitive approaches, and there are 6 components to it. The first is being welcoming and inviting. Research says that the experience of being wanted and welcome affects parent participation in service systems more than anything else, more than race, class, income. All of those different factors fall by the wayside when it comes to feeling welcome in an environment. The next component is perspective shifting, focusing on, we call this focusing on the why rather than the what. As adults, we are all too often concerned about what we hear from others, what we hear from families, what they say, what they do, instead of really trying to understand why they said that. And if we can shift our perspective to the why part of that equation, we become much more analytical. We become less emotional about the thing that they said, and that enhances family engagement. And there's lots of research around that as well. It also strikes us as really interesting that the very characteristics that we view as positive in ourselves are the things that we view as negatives in others. For example, we have the courage of our convictions. They're just stubborn. So, we can reframe just about any family behavior to be a positive if we just look at the way that we view that same kind of behavior in ourselves. So perspective shifting is a really important part of family engagement in our mind. The next component is listening. One of the things that I heard someone say once that I like was that you can't do 2 things at once if one of them is listening. And as as adults in meetings in particular, and in meetings with complex issues and maybe not full agreement on all of the issues, the thing that we tend to do when someone else is speaking is think about what we're going to say next. And it's really hard to put that aside and not think about what we're going to say next, and to really truly listen to what someone is saying, listen actively, listen with intent, and try to understand where they're coming from. There's going to be time to talk about where, what you think. You don't have to be planning that while someone else is speaking. The next component is accepting. And, I think that, again, there's tons of research around the benefits of affirming someone. The research shows that people are much more likely to and willing to change what they're doing if they feel accepted and supported. If we have a perspective that says that we view their words and actions, what they're doing, as perfectly understandable given the circumstance. And, let's face it, many of our families are facing really, really tough circumstances. And so that act of accepting them where they are right now with no conditions is vitally important to engagement, we believe. And then the final component is never giving up. It's a commitment that our effort or involvement with the family is not going to be dependent on something that they do or something that they don't do. We're still going to be committed to them. And again, I think this is a really powerful concept. As Tim mentioned, it was actually serendipity, or it's one of these things that happens when you develop concepts in the middle of the night, it's really easy to remember these 6 components because the acronym is Wisconsin Plan: welcoming, inviting, perspective shifting, listening, accepting, never giving up. So we've used this model internally now for the last decade. We've been able to produce really good outcomes using this model, and high rate of engagement, high rate of families that we refer to other services actually engaging with and utilizing those services. But the real interesting thing is that, to the best of our knowledge, this is the only model that is developed entirely by the population that someone is seeking to engage. So it's the only model that's been totally developed by family members that include kids with social, emotional, behavioral challenges. It's also the only model that we know of that's entirely focused on the person that wants to do the engaging. There is nothing in the model that is required of the family at all. And so that's kind of unique, because one of the things that we did find in many of the models that we explored was that there was a requirement that the parent do something. And we felt that that was a non-starter. And then the last thing I'll just mention is that after using this for a decade ourselves, we are in the process of putting together some resources and guides on how others could adopt this model of engagement. And we're going to be rolling that out hopefully in the September timeframe is what the current schedule calls for. So thanks for the time.
Thank you so much, Hugh. We look forward to seeing the, more of the guts behind it. I know that you guys have been utilizing it and practicing it. So I'm looking forward to then seeing how other people may be able to engage with that framework. So that is really exciting. In case anybody is keeping score, Hugh and Caitlin are tied at 50 midway through the lightning round. And so next up is Bridget Frank. Bridget is with Family Voices of Wisconsin, and she's going to be talking to us about her video fact sheets.
Hi, I'm just going to forewarn everyone. I have 2 kids and a loud small dog at home with me. So yes, I will most likely be interrupted at some point. First, I'm with Family Voices, and Family Voices is Wisconsin's HRSA-funded family-to-family health information center. We're also part of the CYSHCN network, and we are supported by Wisconsin's Title V program. And our work is focused in 3 areas. First is education, and that's education of families, professionals, and legislators. And we do that through trainings and publications and our website, which I really am proud of right now. Second is family leadership opportunities. And our best example is every year we have our Advocacy for Change Institute, and families are invited to come and learn about advocacy. We finished, and this was our first virtual one, and it was really successful. So really happy about that. And then our third area is systems change and public policy. And an example of our public policy directives is right now we're working on disability resource centers for children and families. So that's a work in progress. My position with Family Voices is as the media and education manager. And I think that my job is to really think creatively about how to educate families with children who have special health care needs. I try to do this by thinking about each family's access to information and healthcare, trying to reach underserved populations. I consider literacy levels, so either health literacy and, more importantly, just reading level. The different learning models that people have, including like visual, kinesthetic, auditory, where are they? Oh, reading and linguistic. I should remember those better. And next, I consider aesthetics, because I think there's enough proof that we are all drawn to nice things and repelled by kind of icky looking things. So I try to incorporate that in all of our educational materials. We have currently a website that's filled in our resource library with fact sheets, and they're on a multitude of topics for families to just kind of, I have a question about incontinence supplies, I have a question about Medicaid. They can pull up this fact sheet with very detailed information that's been vetted by groups of people. I wanted to show that, Nicole, is that something I pull up, or is that something that you would pull up? I just wanted to show an example of one.
Either way is fine. I have it pulled up if you want me to.
Oh yeah,
share.
you just want to pull that? That's cool.
Sure.
This is an example of our written fact sheet, our printed fact sheets. I consider all of our stuff a work in progress. Lynn Renner and I work really hard to keep updating the style and to make them more accessible, to make sure that the literacy level is appropriate and that we keep topics that families really need to know about, like personal care service and Medicaid. Pretty important to families. And then each fact sheet that we write is written to be a complete source of information on the topic. And it has a lot of detail and answers, like we just put out the questions and answer those questions in the fact sheet. But for my purposes, for the next step, I wanted to be able to incorporate a message for different types of learners. So I wanted to create a message for visual learners. I wanted to create a message for like younger parents who are super busy and have like one question they just need answered. They don't need to know the encyclopedia. But also, if you've seen anybody younger than me, like look for an answer on, their phone, it's like they scroll, get the answer and go. They don't want to have a huge movie or anything. And then I also wanted to create something that's complementary to our fact sheets. So future plan, and I'll get to that in a bit, but future plan is to have them pair up with our printed fact sheets in our library. So the criteria for each fact sheet is as follows. They have to be under 5 minutes. Nobody wants to hear more than that. They have to answer one question. Like the one we're going to see is, what is newborn screening? They have to have a resource for future learning. So each one will end with, here's where you go for more info. They have to be visually engaging. And I like this part because I get to look at pictures of babies and stuff like that. So that's cool for me. And I wanted to have a literacy level that's accessible for as many parents as possible. So this is 3 minutes. Am I okay on time, or we can cut it off early because I have another minute or two of content, Tim?
We could maybe show just the beginning of it and then you can finish up.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Just as an example.
Yep. Welcome to Family Voices of Wisconsin video fact. I'm not getting audio.
No
So it's
audio.
Sounded in the beginning and then it very briefly, then it went away.
I can,
Huh. Okay.
I can hear if I can drive, maybe I can. What are you guys seeing? Are you seeing my screen?
No, I can stop sharing. Were you guys seeing the video fact sheets?
Yes, we were seeing the video fact sheet. Just there was sound just briefly and then it went away.
I wonder if, Bridget, maybe you just want to kind of put it, I'm just worried about time.
Oh, okay. You know what? Everybody, it's on our website. Check it out.
Yeah, put the link in the chat and then they can watch it there too.
Yeah, and I can send that out with the materials from the meeting as well.
Okay, so how this involves us today is that in our efforts, like in Act Early's efforts, we want to educate as many people as possible. Now we have all of our written fact sheets translated into Spanish, and it's great. You can just click on the link and have a PDF of a Spanish fact sheet. They're all matched up. It's wonderful. But for the video fact sheets, it's kind of a larger endeavor because it's got the narration and the script and the slides all have to be translated in Spanish. And I know no Spanish, and Google Translate, I'm hearing, is not a good thing. So we've gotten partnership with Wiki to translate the video fact sheets into Spanish. And that has helped us kind of propelled us along, or me along in this work. So like this first series is on newborn screening. I'm also working on a series of birth to 3, and I'm working with Chris Barnico, hi Chris, on Act Early series. And I'm also working on making more complementary video fact sheets to go along with our written fact sheets. Again, we're gonna hopefully work with Wiki and Act Early and have these translated into Spanish as soon as possible by the end of the year. Fingers crossed. Greatly thankful to everybody that we're working with on these projects. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll give you our website and I'll give you a link to one of the videos if you ever want to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bridget. That was the lightning round. All points were doubled. They all ended with 50 points. So it is a tie. You are all winners. Back to Nicole.
Thank you, Tim. I am very pleased to introduce our speakers for today's meeting. Sarah Esmond leads the Wisconsin All of Us Community Engagement Team and is also the Administrative Director of the Collaborative Center for Health Equity. April Kagaya, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name, is on the community engagement team for the Wisconsin All of Us project. She also leads the All of Us at Wisconsin Madison Community Advisory Board. So I'm gonna hand it over to them because I think they'll be describing a little bit more what these projects are and their engagement work related to it. Let me just get the share screen going. And okay.
Thank you, Nicole. I know it's hard to both hostess and do the technology. So just you focus on your dashboard and April and I'll step in here. We're delighted to be here today. Thank you everybody for the time. We were tapped because I think Nicole and Tim came across the All of Us Wisconsin website that UW hosts and saw something reflected there that indicated to them, hey, maybe this group has something to teach us about engagement work. And I'm delighted to have my colleague April join me for this presentation. We thought we would talk through a little bit of, do a brief introduction and sort of talk through our work, but really impressed with what we're already hearing and seeing by some of your colleagues, some of those lightning round presentations. I profess I don't know what Tim is counting, but I hope, April, that we will meet the challenge of the competition. Next slide, please. So we're mindful of time and going to try to stay within your boundaries. We'll do some brief introductions, also including a brief introduction of all of us. If you have interest in learning more about the program, Nicole shared the website link and also the one to the center that I'm a part of. We believe storytelling is a great opportunity for exchange. So we're going to share a case example in an effort to illustrate some of what we're talking about with the engagement that we take, the engagement approaches that we take, creating opportunities for action because we're essentially asking the public for their help with all of us. And then we have some time set aside, I think, after that for some discussion and exchange. So April and I will be switching back and forth, and I'm going to take the next slide. This is April in one of her many looks. She is a California native and has been in Wisconsin for over 30 years. I think she brings some of that sunshine from California to her work. She's a mom of four, as she said, and a community activist. Has been with the School of Medicine and Public Health now for, I think she's just coming up on closing out her second year as an AOU outreach specialist. And she's going to take the perch today, really emphasizing the creation of equitable spaces locally and the work that she does. We decided to introduce each other kind of late in the game, and I said, I want her to also be recognized for being super humble and very funny. You're welcome, April. I just did the first audible there. Next slide's for April.
Thank you, Sarah. And this is Sarah Esmond. She's a native of Evanston, Illinois, and has lived in Dane County between Madison and Stoughton for the past approximately 30 years. She's a middle child of 10, which brings her to have the skills of a mediator, diplomat, and active listener in that role. And within UW, she has many hats. She works in areas of the School of Nursing, School of Medicine and Public Health, the Collaborative Center for Health Equity since 2002. And then Sarah's perch is navigating health equity at and with UW. Next slide, please. So Oliver's research program is a health data program. It's launched nationwide through the National Institute for Health, and Wisconsin is one of the sites that is housing this research program. The goal is to accelerate research and to improve health that is done through precision medicine, through individualized prevention and treatment with considerations for lifestyle, socioeconomic status, environment, and biology. And we do this by recruiting folks from various walks of life, including rural, folks over the age of 65, and folks from different ethnic backgrounds as well. Next slide, please. And like I said, Wisconsin is one of the sites or a consortium, and under that, we have the UW-Madison and UW-Milwaukee sites. There's also the Gunderson Health System out of La Crosse, Marshfield Clinic in Marshfield, and then the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. Next slide, please. I'll pass it to Sarah.
So April is just one of my colleagues on the community engagement team. We have a team just as your program reflects. Tyson Jackson is another local native of Madison, a former collegiate athlete, a father, someone who's done a lot of community development and community organizing. Samantha Bath is our newest teammate and has demonstrated, I think, to April and our colleagues about how somebody who understands the mission of the work and has a great orientation to service can land in Madison and make contributions pretty quickly. She comes to us via South Africa and after doing some global work in service roles in both Korea and Indiana, North Korea and Indiana. And then Katia Jimenez is our colleague who resides in Mount Horeb. She is a small business owner and also, I think, loves to reflect the rural, the outside of Madison perspective, at least one of them on our team. And she also came to us with a great background from the CDC, lending to another national program where she had to kind of land in communities and generate some interest around research and then disappear for a while. So a large study called NHANES. Next slide, please. April, I can't remember if I'm setting this up for you or you're going to go.
Yeah, I think you're going to set it up for me.
Okay. So April and I were like, okay, we have 20 minutes, 25 minutes. We want to tell you a story about just a particular agency here locally that we are working with in a variety of different ways, and just sharing a little bit from each of our perspectives, kind of what's gone into creating a partnership with this clinic, this community clinic, and in a way of just kind of illustrating and emphasizing some of the important features we feel are part of any partnership, new, building from brand new, or maybe building from a place where there's at least a little bit of connectivity. So April's going to lead us off, and then I'm going to do some commentary from sort of the perspective of I came into the project a little after the early stages, and kind of what I brought from my perch.
Thanks, Sarah. So Access is one of our partners. We, prior to COVID, were sitting at the Access Community Health Center located off of Park Street. And one of the things that we're really cognizant of is creating relationships. And Hugh, your presentation with the key to family engagement was really resonated, because that's similar to some of the things that we look for in creating partnerships and just building those relationships. And so we like to meet people where they're at. Even though we are recruiting for a research program, we also too care about the individuals that we're interacting with. We're not here to try to sell them anything. We're here mainly to provide them education. So what we would do is we would go to the Access site. There was a table kind of off to the side where we would sit. We had our AOU kind of tablecloth and swag and just sitting there and really just waiting for people to come and approach us. We're not, out there like trying to, after people come out of their appointments, I can't even flyers and trying to push information down their throat. Just more of a kind of laid back approach. And through that, we found that there are people that would approach us, at the table to either get hand sanitizer or a stress ball or, whatever thing that they might have found attractive to them. And then we would gently, give them a little bit of background about AOU. There were some people that we interacted with that weren't interested, which is fine. But then we would see them regularly. They would come back, the following month for another appointment. And then we'd be like, oh, you guys are still here. Actually, can you tell me a little bit more information? Or, now I'm ready to sign up. So it was just one of those things that we were just able to build those relationships. And the neat thing about being at that site in particular was right across the parking lot is the Urban League. And there we had research coordinators who would be ready to actually enroll and take their, what we call PMB, their blood, their body measurements if they're interested in enrolling. So we could walk them right across the parking lot and help them kind of facilitate their enrollment in the program. But like I said, it's mainly relationship building those connections with people in the community, meeting them where they're at by going to where people, come on a regular basis. And that's kind of the foundation for how we like to just engage. And I think we build very authentic and fruitful relationships that way. And it's been very successful.
Thank you, April. I'm gonna, before I get into this slide, before we use this slide, Nicole, I'm just gonna speak a little bit more about the case. Thank you. There's a few things that I think I saw a comment in the chat too. So April, if I'm remembering correctly, I think even before you guys managed to set up the ability to sit in the clinic atrium, did you also do a lunch and learn there at that clinic as sort of yeah, go ahead.
So we did that actually after we were already in the space.
Okay.
Lunch and learn, it was kind of, I don't want to say backwards, because I don't feel like there's really a right or a wrong way necessarily to engage, but we spoke to doctors and nurses who work for Access just to give them more information about all of us, so that they could then, if someone were to go into their appointment and say like, what's with those people sitting out there? What is that really about? That they would be able to have that information. And so, yeah, we presented to them, we provided them lunch, gave them a little bit more in depth about All of Us research program, what goes into what we actually do when we collect the information, what it means to be a participant in it. And then that relationship was able to help strengthen relationship between the doctors and the patients too, in regards to All of Us. So yeah, thank you. I forgot to mention that piece.
No worries at all. And I'm with you. I think the beauty of this experience was kind of following the lead of the Access team members. And I will just add, as a person who certainly recognizes Access's role in the community and the fact that they are a safety net site and very tapped, there's a few things I just want to point out from the administrative side of what April's describing. So we are very fortunate to be in a project that has dollars assigned to community engagement, and the ability to have staff who that is their full-time role, and the way they carry out their work can look very different depending on the day and what they're involved in. But just a few things that I think aren't necessarily common to all projects is having that kind of budget, and also certainly not to research projects where sometimes there is a well, not to say that we're not under pressure to accrue the public into this project, because certainly there is a great deal of pressure to introduce the project and see if people will engage. But the fact that our team members needed to be in that space in a consistent way and starting to create some of that visual presence. And then, and I can't remember exactly how the negotiation of tabling went about, probably because one of our colleagues had an in there, but then that advanced to getting in front of the staff, right, for a little more explanation that expanded from sort of that one-on-one transaction to more of a clinic team listening to the conversation. And April, if I'm not mistaken, I think there was even, you know, mixed views in that room, right? Like, we're a busy, we're a busy clinic, and we're trying to move patients and families through this, you know, work that we're doing and what they're here for, and they have urgency. And so, you know, some bean counters in accounting might look at the commitment of staff time just being in a space as, you know, that's a bit of a risk, and could they be multitasking, and could they be doing other things on their laptops? And we're going, yeah, nope, we really want them to be able to sit in a, you know, not be stressed and really try to connect with folks in a natural way as part of the routine of the setting. And so, you know, this is something that took a while to build. And just as April said, we were very strategic in thinking about, the clinic was very clear, we're not going to be able to host you to do the full processing of a member of the public who elects to participate. How can we work together to figure out a way to make that possible and not add burden to any client being seen, make it as easy as possible? And so, you know, this was a challenge, I think, for the teams to simultaneously approach urban triage and think about, or excuse me, not urban triage, Urban League next door, and think about what might be possible. Well, first of all, hey, here's us. So April, would you mind talking a little bit about that? Because I think it wasn't actually, you know, we didn't know if it would be possible to do.
Yeah, for the Urban Lake partnership?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that partnership was already in place prior to my arrival on the team.
Okay.
Just what I've seen and just interacting with the staff, and just like, they were very open to it once they heard what all of us was. Like, yeah, sure, come on in. Like, you know, no problem. We were able to use their space. They had a lot of space that was available. So we were able to use, I think it was 3 times a week, there was one office space in their downstairs area where one of our research coordinators was able to sit, and people could schedule appointments at that site. We also held pop-up events there. So we just did like a mass mailing through MyChart and through postcards to people in that zip code to invite them to come hear about all of us. So we provided breakfast, juice, coffee, that sort of thing, and just kind of like an open space. People could come hear about it, and then if they wanted to enroll, then they could. And that has, I think we did it there twice pre-COVID, and that was very successful in us being able to get people to enroll. And the nice thing about, like I said, our relationship building is that when we're there doing pop-up events, our staff, we're there engaging with the people, and we'll sit with them. Let's say there's someone who's not computer literate. We'll sit there and we'll just ask them the questions and then fill it out for them. So it's not like, here's this, you know, tablet, fill it out, let us know if you have any questions. We literally walk them through step by step if they need it. And so that's another way that we just build relationships and then build trust within the community. And I think that's very important as well.
I completely agree. And again, I think the presence, the repeat presence, the consistency, these are folks that they're getting to know as part of being kind of associated with the project. The reason that a certain space requirement is necessary is because the process, the actual enrollment process includes, as April is saying, a not insignificant amount of going through a consent process and then an entire sort of related step where we're collecting biospecimens and biomarkers. So, this is a lot to ask of an individual. There is an incentive, it's a one-time incentive, but it's a big ask. And it's an ask of a particular, you're trying to access community members who aren't well represented in research. And the whole idea is that that is driving some of the health disparities that we're surrounded by. So a lot of logistical matters that we have to account for when we're setting up these partnerships, thinking about space. You got to really think ahead of like, how's this all going to interact? So our neighbors in this case have been wonderful. I think the other thing I'll add is that it then became possible with access once COVID hit and we were no longer able to do much of what we had been doing face-to-face. They were interested in, they understood our desire to kind of maintain some momentum. So just as one example, we made arrangements to present to their patient councils, and they have a English language patient council and a Spanish language patient council. That tip or that help came through our CAB. Members on our CAB were instrumental in assisting with a bit of that. Is there more, April, that you would like to share with regards to that piece or the CAB interaction?
No, I mean, so our CAB, our Community Advisory Board, is made up of 8 community members, various different backgrounds. There are some that work in healthcare, there are some that are retired, there are some that work Briar Patches, a variety of different organizations, and their charge is to educate the community in their areas on all of us. And one of the benefits to having people like this is that they're able to then bring things to our attention and bring connections that maybe we otherwise wouldn't have. And so that's just one example of how that happened.
Thank you so much. And following that, we had an opportunity, one of our team members was invited to present to the executive board where we could showcase a little bit about the work that was happening at this single clinic to see if there might be interest in replicating it at other clinics. And, Access has just been incredibly generous in kind of making time for us and to sort of be creative in ways that we could maintain a bit of presence. So we also are able to advertise in their newsletter, not advertise, we're able to sort of put stories in their newsletter, very accessible stories, I guess intended to sort of keep the brand on the radar while we navigated through COVID. And we're in conversations with them again about sort of what might be possible opening up hopefully opening up post-COVID in this calendar year. The other thing I will add is that because I'm connected to the project, but also wear a hat on campus with the Collaborative Center for Health Equity, there's pieces of this that I can learn from the All of Us team and their experiences and being an active listener, kind of hearing what Access is talking about with regards to some of their limitations or some of their aspirations, and take that over to the UW side to activate on things that the project isn't necessarily positioned or in some cases even allowed to advance, and bring that over into another setting to see if there's a way to address it separately, but in a complementary way. So in this case, we learned that Access had, as many are dealing with, had employees who had some vaccine uptake concerns. And so there was means for us and the Collaborative Center for Health Equity to offer to assist with a bit of technical assistance around surveying staff and doing a bit of qualitative field work to lend to that interest they had in kind of understanding really quickly kind of what was going on and needing a little extra bandwidth. So that was a give that we could make without kind of a give without a get, I say. The other thing is that the All of Us program relies on clinic partners who have patients with EHR records. We haven't talked about that much today, but it's a part of the data, the health data that All of Us is interested in accessing. And an FQHC like Access really doesn't necessarily have what's needed for that kind of EHR transaction work. They haven't been asked to engage in that way before. So through the All of Us Wisconsin project, they were well positioned to go after some HRSA dollars that became available to help shore up that infrastructure in FQHCs statewide. And I believe 2, maybe 3 of our FQHCs in Wisconsin were able to access those dollars. So something's being left behind too, something that's built into their infrastructure that allows them to do different things, learn some different things from their records, but also allows them to participate in something they may not have been able to easily otherwise. So we're big on leaving something behind, thinking about not just what we're getting, but what we're giving. So we wanted to use this story today as a way of just sharing a little bit from our different perches, how we think about the work and how we support the work. And I'm looking at the time and thinking, April, maybe we'll just flash the next slide as sort of our wrap-up slide. I think these are things we heard from some of your presenters earlier in the day too. We feel strongly that, you know, true partnerships are going to rest on these characteristics. My job is to help this team get the information that they need quickly, keep them updated. They know they can count on me for access to resources either within the project or perhaps extending and reaching outside of the project. We both have to be ready to present the AOU project across very diverse settings. So in the instance of the board of the executive board, they wanted a frontline staff person to be presenting on this project. They weren't looking for our faculty principal investigators. They wanted to hear sort of from the ground how things were going, which was totally awesome. And I think the trustworthy piece comes from some of these things we've kind of hammered today: being present, being nimble, being respectful, being genuine, things we heard you guys talking about too in your work. You just can't serve unless you can really hear and understand and appreciate where people are coming from, whether that's in the place that they're in, but also just where they are and in their world, navigating their world. We have a lot of diversity in our staff that isn't just about racial ethnic heritage, but about their leadership and time here in Madison and their connectedness. So these are professionals with really extensive portfolios, networks of connections that we rely on and have to honor and respect that we need to leave a good feeling there too, because they're risking opening those opportunities up to us. Before we go to the next slide, I want to just ask April, anything you want to mention at this point? Our last slide is a little bit set up for interaction with the audience.
Okay.
See, she's so humble. Okay, Nicole, you could put up the last slide then. We just, we thought because there's some time set aside for exchange, these were questions we just put up for maybe things we could talk around during this time. We're happy to answer questions or go into more details about what we shared with you, but your event coordinators, Nicole and others, were so wonderful in giving us a lot of information, a lot of details about kind of where you are and what this family engagement challenge and this goal is and where you want to be. And these were just some questions we came up with that we might talk around in terms of just getting to a place of being in an action-oriented, you know, taking steps of action, moving out of processing. And, you know, I'm being in academia as long as I have, oftentimes rooms, the first thing they do, well, we need to do needs assessment. Well, I think we've captured that pretty well. We've really got specialized data, but we think about what we could do with that, how to apply it. So anyway, these were points that we came up with, and we would just open up the floor to hear from you about what we've shared and if it's been helpful in terms of what you're thinking about moving forward with family engagement. So thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you both. Really appreciate it. And I thank you so much for bringing these questions. And this is our, instead of small groups, we're doing a large group discussion and exchange here. So I invite everyone who is interested in turning their video on, you can do that, and we can feel like we're a little bit of a group again today. And I'll try hard not to be the first person to jump in because I got lots of thoughts, but that's always okay.
Yeah, I think Nicole also asked us if we would lend to facilitation. So I'll just, maybe the first bullet. I think this was a term referenced in some of the information we got, hard to reach. And it's a common one I hear also on campus at times. And I really encourage my colleagues to kind of unbundle that. Who do we mean? Who are we referring to? What are we referring to? I was thinking a little bit about what I think Hugh was presenting of how easy it is to kind of find fault or project your own, you know, what's important or what your values. So that's a common term that's really gone out of favor in a lot of spaces. And I just mean to point it out because I think so has under-resourced, underserved. I think a lot of our customers, our clients, our neighbors are taking the position that we can define ourselves if you're interested in understanding who we are. So I put that up there to be a little provocative and get a little exchange going, but
like
welcome to hear from others.
Yeah, and a provocative is good. And a lot of the phrases we end up with are they're in the funding opportunities from HRSA. So you're like, okay, yes.
That's worst offenders. Worst offenders of all, federal sponsors.
Around these like, oh, yeah.
So Sarah, this is Tim. I'm wondering, do you find yourself then having to use different language as you're writing reports and as you're interacting with colleagues and then trying to distance from that wording when you go out in the community because you really don't know what the community would prefer? So how do you work with, you know, you have an internal set, but yet you know that's not really what you want to say when you get out there? How do you balance that?
The short answer is yes, there's a lot of translation, and not just for these terms, these descriptors, but also, and April I'm sure can weigh in on this too, just in this example, the NIH language. So NIH and the way they understand community engagement, I'm speaking in a broad brush. There are examples of different levels of understanding about this, but generally speaking, for the group that's behind the All of Us project, they're a bit late to what community engagement actually is and what it requires. The best thing about this award that I saw right away in 2015, 2016, when we went after it, was there's some dollars put aside. That's the first time I'd really seen something significant in an investment of community engagement. So somebody along the line got that right. But yes, Tim, the short answer is I'm doing a lot of translation and pivoting in English, moving between community settings where there are very context-specific ways of referring to the community that's being served as well as the work being done, and an academic setting where there's an entire other dictionary, if you will, data dictionary, especially in research worlds. So, you know, hard to reach. I still hear a lot, for example, in my clinical trials colleagues, that's not uncommon, and it's actually in print way too often. So
Sarah, when you're reaching out and recruiting for community members to join you, and you're going for a specific, you know, you're going for that underreached population, you know who you don't have, you know who you are not reaching. How do you ask, how do you ask for those people to come forward as you're trying to join them in their space? How do you make them know that you want them without using a term that is in itself problematic?
Oh, if I can answer.
Please, April.
So I think that's why for us, it's very important that we have people that are representative of those communities or areas, right? Because if I'll use myself, for example, as an African-American woman, if I were to go into the Urban League or other spaces and with my connections in Madison, 9 times out of 10, I know people in that space. So I already have a reputation, so it's trustworthy. So they're more likely to listen to what I have to say. There is, though, in research, a lot of hesitation in the African-American community in regards to research just because of historical things like Henrietta Lacks and Tuskegee. But me being able to talk to them about, I also had those hesitations, and here's why I'm supportive of all of us. And this is what my experience has been, is very helpful. And again, it goes to that relationship building, not to say that you have to have somebody that looks like them, but it definitely helps, right? Because it's a trust building thing from the start. But that being said, that doesn't also mean that they, just because I look like them, they're going to, trust what I'm saying. But it just helps to have that authentic engagement with people. So wherever we can, it's best to be able to have people that either look like them or are familiar in those spaces and have worked with them and maybe there's a certain organization that somebody on our team has worked with, so they're already familiar with a director or someone at the food pantry. So that kind of helps us get in the door, so to speak. But it just really helps with the intentionality of just being authentic and that group knowing that, okay, they're coming because they really care, not just because I'm a number that they're going to be able to say we got, whatever percentage of, this underrepresented population.
So I will just add on, thank you so much, April. I think that is the ideal scenario, is that you have a colleague who is well experienced with the priorities and the mission of a particular organization and can help kind of bridge that whatever's driving the ask to figure out how to make the approach, or if to make the approach. I mean, we've had plenty of conversations on our team of like, hey, on paper, this looks like a great match. And then appreciating like, they just got a new executive director last month, or a key person just left. Let's table that or think carefully about scaling our ask to something that might be more easily, something we can approach with. I think, good practice, my training is as a consumer scientist, so good practice on trying to reach any segment that you're interested in reaching is to do that legwork ahead of time. Where am I walking in? What are their strategic objectives? Is there a potential match between something that's tied to the priorities of this project and something that they're doing? It's even better if I have an April or a Tyson or a Katya or a Samantha who's got the personal connection and some history, because I don't want to ever jeopardize April's reputation. She's not going to let me. She's going to let me stumble across my own self if she needs to, and I trust her to let me do that if it's what's got to happen. But the idea is to try to not bring something that's such a burden or so far from what's happening in that space.
Sarah and April, another thing that I heard in your example that I feel has a really powerful, broader message for a lot of the work we do, is that, you were in the community and you were waiting for people to come to you. You were available, but you were not pushing. Now, obviously you're doing research recruitment, and that's different than a lot of, service provision or helping that people are doing. But I think personally, I feel like one of the most profound and insidious mistakes we make that's disempowering to other people is when we're trying to help is it's sort of a push out model, like we know what issue we want to help with.
Unidirectional.
Exactly right. We figured out exactly what's going to help. Here it is, we would offer it. And I've profoundly made this mistake a few years ago, feeling like, who are the people who are not accessing this help? I want to make sure they have a chance to access it, and then trying to, connect with them. But, where in that, so there's a parallel in what you're saying to kind of being there and being available, and just showing up and being available, and showing up and being available, and communicating what it is you have to offer, and not shoving it down anybody's throat. But then I think and more than that, for us, I feel like there's a step many of our programs and efforts need to take now, that doesn't just, that goes out into the community and forms relationships with people to say, all right, here's a problem I care about solving. That when you could have a young child who has a developmental challenge that shows up, and then you might want some help or some services and supports, and you're not going to know where they are. And so I like to help with that issue. That's where I'm passionate. And then talking to people in relationship to say, how do you experience that challenge in your community? How do you frame it? How do you, view it? How is it different than how I view it? What would you want in that situation? What would be helpful to you? And then being much more active in bringing to the community what they want and need, co-creating with people what could be helpful to them, instead of, saying, here's what I have to offer, and my goal is for you to take it from me. So that's where my head is at the moment. Not to say I have any skill at all necessarily in doing that. It's just profoundly obvious to me that that's kind of where my head is.
And to your point, like there's a lot of parallels in that, is that the people have to be ready to receive the help that you're providing, right? So whether it's someone who, if you're trying to get somebody to quit smoking, if they don't want to, it doesn't matter what program you have. Similarly to your programs with how you're trying to support parents, and maybe they haven't accepted or fully come to terms with what their child or children are going through, so they're not going to be ready to receive the help. So that's where that relationship building comes in, because maybe talk about something else. Because there have been people where I've been sitting at Access and people come up to the table and like they have, they comment on something I'm wearing, or we talk about the weather, and you're building relationships in regards to other things. But then that foundation is set. And then when they come back and see me again, they're like, okay, now tell me more about that. So it's
that girl with those cute shoes.
Right.
She's back again.
You have to be willing to sometimes put aside exactly what your product or service is and just engage on a personal level separate from that, to be able to build that trust, and then they will circle back.
I'll just add, thank you, April. I couldn't agree more. I think also we're often late to accept that they may be making a choice, that they don't want to engage. And it could be because they don't have the information, absolutely. But I think until you know that for certain, it's important to keep open that option that they may not want to engage, either right now, or there's a history, something's occurred where there's some distrust that needs some repairing. So, we're sitting in a clinic that's, doing its damnedest to serve its clients. They have to trust that this isn't a mission creep away from what they're doing. And April's exactly right. And the other thing I would add is that if you're going to expend that time, you need to be supported to do it. It can't be a half-time effort. Like the model needs to work to allow that kind of presence and continuity. And also, do you have the ability to confidently say, I'm not sure I can help with that thing that you're telling me about, but I might have a place to go to see if there'd be another avenue. And I think that's the other piece that the Collaborative Center for Health Equity is trying to provide the All of Us project, is a way of seeing other opportunities for connection with the university and some of the resources that it has. This is a partner to the university and to UW Health also. So I think important to appreciate those other elements that might be at play.
We can take a few more minutes if there are other comments or questions, just so you know, we can adjust the schedule there.
So while people are thinking, and I bet you April can do this for me, because she's really quick on social media. We just did a project on community influencers around COVID, and there was a nice presentation, an array of presentations by community influencers, and the work that goes into some of what you guys showed at the front end of this time together today, to creating pathways and communication pathways. So I just would love to, April, if you don't have it handy, I'm mixing it up. It's not AOU, it was a Zichi production. I'll get that to you guys because it might be useful to hear some of the experiences of individuals who've been tapped to kind of be in these community liaison roles, but then are also learning how to influence through social media channels, messaging about, in this case, it was COVID related, but I think it's a great series of insights about what that requires.
That's
in
great.
terms of continuity, presence, and those things. So it might be helpful.
That's fabulous. No, we've had discussions recently about community influencers and community liaisons. So I've been hearing much more about that. Be great to have.
Sure.
Anne, did you have a question?
Well, I do, but it's hard to formulate, and I don't think we have time to fully explore it. Sorry, my camera does this when it activates. But my question has to do with something that, for purposes of brevity, I'll use the public health term that I'm still struggling with, or have pretty much abandoned, of target population. So the issue is that if you are trying to reach a group, and I'll use the word reach here, and that is has a particular, you're trying to find common interest with a focus, and not just the entire community. So it's not, you're not looking for, let's just engage with this entire community. There may be a group within the community that you're particularly interested in engaging with. Sort of how do, obviously you want to either start with people that you know within that group, or, but I'm just thinking if you're, how to sort of let people know you're concerned about the entire community, but your particular interest is in a focused area without sounding sort of excluding or uncaring about the rest of the community. So again, I don't think we have time to really explore this fully, but I'm just struggling with this idea of sort of the focus of our work, because we can't solve all the problems, and most of us are funded to look at a particular aspect.
Hey, Anne, what you're grappling with is exactly what needs grappling. What's the driver behind my desire to reach a particular segment? And if you're struggling with putting into words what that driver is, imagine how it sounds on the other side of like, why are you in front of me again? Why was I invited to this space? So it is tricky to appreciate, and I think to own and acknowledge sometimes the funders of projects are very interested in seeing a diverse array of people participating. That's a very common driver for research. And the reason why, and why AOU is so important, and was actually the first clinical research project I ever enrolled in, was because most of our research findings are based on pools of people that aren't diverse, which leaves out the benefit of those very things, those technologies, those discoveries, that medication, whatever it is. So, you know, really grappling with, is the interest to meet a metric? It's probably more than that, I'm guessing. Is the interest to understand a segment of the population and their understanding of us as a project, as a service deliverer? You know, do we know? So it's getting very strategic around why what's motivating and what's driving. And it can just be a desire to help, but help about what? What indicates that this segment of the population needs your help, needs the program's help? April, do you have more to add to that or thoughts on that?
I think you said it very well.
So I'm gonna just go a little further down that path, right?
Push in, push in.
Yeah, right. So in children and youth with special health care needs, we have programs to support families that have kiddos with disabilities. And we get feedback from all sorts of different evaluations. And what we hear consistently is that it's very helpful. And oh my God, I wish I'd met up with you guys years ago. And
Known sooner,
that's
right?
That's the main comment. And then we look at our demographics and we're not serving Black families very well at all. When you look at the population of Black and African-American families in the state, and you know that 20% of kiddos have special health care needs, you got to figure it's, you know, that doesn't stop at the line of race, but we don't have those, you know, when we ask for them demographic information in the phone calls, we recognize that we're not, so to speak, reaching that community. We think what we have based on the feedback we've been given is something families like and families want and families wanted years ago. And we feel terrible that it appears as though we're not providing that service to minority families. So then, you know, is it that they don't want what we have to offer? How would we even know that? Because we haven't even offered. I mean, we just, you know, and I keep saying our biggest problem is that we predominantly respond to somebody reaching out to us. All right. So you call us and we'll help you. If you don't know we exist, if you don't know, you know, you're not going to call. And then we say, oh, well, so sorry. But that's not acceptable either. So it's not just that, like, it's not just us having big heads and thinking that, you know, we have something that's going to benefit you. We hear from families that what we have will benefit, you know, yeah, absolutely. We're not reaching Native families either. So anyways, that, I guess it's more complicated. Yeah.
It is, but we can't leave there, even though there's a minute left. So I'll just throw back your way. I absolutely agree. And so a couple of thoughts. Where are those spaces where those families are successfully being served? Those are natural potential allies and partners to you. Those are places where you can learn about how the reach was established and the service gained. April, go ahead. I see you leaning in. Oh. I mean, I'm sure you can point to those in communities. I see somebody about Native families. I can only imagine. You know, there you're also dealing with confidence and understanding tribal land, tribal culture, but you know, there's a whole university in this state. And I would be glad to do some additional conversation about like pathways that exist, people who serve, that might begin to lend creative thinking about, you know, what is our outreach plan? I would wonder, Becky, who's doing the evaluations? What's being asked? Why aren't the segments of the population that aren't being reached to ask about awareness of, right? So again, there's dollars involved, lots of fun things. Oh, there's an evaluation coming.
I'll give a couple closing thoughts here just to honor the fact that some people will start to peel off. So we'll go ahead and do this. So Nicole did go ahead and put the evaluation up so that you can do that, and it's a quick, short one. I wanted to say that this is the beginning of a conversation. I think these meetings will not be strictly one-off, self-contained units. They are self-contained in a certain goal, and they are a part of a conversation that's ongoing. And as I sort of said at the beginning, like we really have taken this thread, and I always say it 3 different ways because I don't like any of the ways we say it, but this thread of, you know, digging into equity and how we're doing what we're doing and how we're creating what we're doing and how we're engaging and reaching just the full spectrum of the population, right? And that's just really been something we've been digging into, and I think it's bearing fruit. And we won't have all the answers today, but we're growing and changing and learning and transforming what we're doing, which I think is profound. And just one final note to the specific kind of example that came up. and the tribal communities. You know, we had an Act Early state team member a few years ago from the tribal communities, a liaison, and as we were talking about autism, he's a grandfather of a kid with autism, and he pointed out, oh, well, you know, he thought his community did not view autism as a problem. You wrapped yourselves around that child and supported them as they needed. And I've thought about that a great deal because it gets back to this idea of framing and how we view something and what we designed to help with this thing as we conceptualized it. And I think we don't need more needs assessments perhaps, but I think we do need a new drawing board and sitting down with people, different people at the table to say, hey, how do you view this? If we talk about such and such, how are you seeing it? Where are the assets and strengths and joys there? Where are the challenges and pain points and struggles? And then a second point is, you said who's serving people successfully in that community. And another way to kind of ask that is if we're trying to figure out where people go for help with a specific issue is, asking people, what would you do if you wanted help around resources? Who would you go to? Where would you go? And it could be the fact, Becky, that, maybe if we were designing this children, youth with social health care needs network, 10, 20 years ago with different people at the table, it just might have been a different system or thing that was designed. So it can be that maybe something's different, needs to be, there's some differences in the design. So anyway, appreciate everybody coming. I feel like this is a good seed for our future. We have other opportunities outside of these meetings to spotlight bright spots. So if you have ideas, just like those lightning rounds of things you want our community to know about, these bright spots that we do outside of these meetings are often from other states or people you want to invite in because they're not at the meetings with us. Please let Nicole know. We are launching a new website for the team and a newsletter. So that will get launched after this meeting. So keep an eye out for that. Any feedback or input on how to make that better. We will break down these recordings into pieces of the lightning rounds and the presentation, and those will start to be posted on the website so you can catch what you missed. And I think that's it. I said that as quick as I could. Thank you very much to Sarah and April. We really appreciate you bringing your insights and your experience to us and sharing with us and learning with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay, and the debrief is actually in a different Zoom call, so it should be in the meeting invite. So some of you over there.